Hi everyone, my name is Hazel and I'm an author and a PhD student, and today we're going to be talking about some tips I have for NaNoWriMo. So if you don't know what NaNoWriMo is, it means National Novel Writing Month and it takes place in November. And as the day of filming this, it is the 6th of November, and by the time this goes up it will be the end of the second week of November. So it will be halfway through NaNoWriMo. However, in my defence, why this video is coming so late is because A, I've been very stressed with PhD work, and B, ever since the UK went into lockdown in March, I've had no concept of what day of the week it is, what month it is. I don't know, I barely registered. It was my birthday in August. Any concept of time has just been lost on me this year. So that's my excuse, and I do feel like a lot of people have just they're not really sure what year it is. Like, to me it kind of feels like May if it weren't for the bad weather here. I mean, there's always bad weather here, but yeah, weird concept of time. However, that being said, even though the video is late, you don't have to write a novel in a month in just November. You can do it whenever you like. So before we get started into tips, I'm just going to briefly talk about my experience with NaNoWriMo, and I haven't actually ever done it before, as in I've never participated in November, in the month-long thing in November, because I love writing. Why would I wait until November to do it? Why would you? I just do it whenever I want to. I don't wait till November. If I want to write a novel in a month in February, I will. And in my opinion, writing 50,000 words in 30 days is actually incredibly easy, because I can write 100,000 words in 20 days. However, I know not everybody is like that. I've been writing novels since I was like 5 years old. To me, writing a novel is absolutely nothing. To me, writing a novel takes zero amount of effort. Like, it's very easy. However, I do appreciate it's not that easy for other people. I get that, I understand. So, someone who is a published author and someone who has written several novels, I would like to give you some tips about how to make your novel writing experience, whether you're doing NaNoWriMo in November or you decide actually I want to do it in March, whatever it is. I thought it'd be a good opportunity. Plus as well, I mean, I'm in the UK has just gone back into lockdown. I don't know what people are going to be doing between now and Christmas, but let's say, okay, so by the time this video goes up it's going to be 2 weeks into NaNoWriMo, you realise you want to do it, then do it in December or prepare for January or something. You don't need to do it in November. You can write a novel in a month whenever you want. It doesn't matter when you do it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is planning. And obviously this process would start before you write the novel, but the planning is the most important part. When I used to write when I was younger, I didn't used to plan at all. I would just have like a general idea in my head of where I wanted the story to go, and I would just do it. And whilst it was fun and definitely more spontaneous, and that came across in the writing, it was also kind of messy and all over the place. And in my opinion, after planning so many novels and planning my PhD thesis as well, or at least part of it, I do feel like the planning process should take longer than the writing process. So if you're going to spend the entire 30 days writing the novel, you should spend at least double that planning, at least 2 months, in my opinion. The longer you spend on the plan, easier it's going to be to write the novel. I'm finding the same with my PhD chapter I'm working on, and with all the novels and fan fictions I've written in my life. I'm not just short 5 chapters long, I've had some that have been 60 chapters before, and planning has helped so much. And doing such an in-depth plan is the trick to actually finishing a novel within a month. Without that plan, it's going to be very hard, I would think, to finish a novel that's good in a month. You could finish a bad novel in a month. Anyone could finish a bad novel in a month. But you could finish a really good and fairly polished novel in a month. I think that's reasonable if you spend a good deal of time planning. So the best way to start planning is to have the general idea of what you want your book to be about, as well as have a start point and an end point, so an A and a B. Because if you have an end point, it helps you pace the rest of the story. Even if that end point changes and even if that start point changes, you have the general journey of your novel. So you have the overall idea of what you want to happen, you have a start point and you want an end point. That's a fantastic place to start. If you don't have that, then you need to get that. I don't know what else to say, you need to get that. You can't really go any much further with it until you've got that, apart from I guess make some characters, which might help generate some ideas, but you do kind of need that start point and that end point, and as well as the general overarching idea of the novel where you want to take it in order to start the planning process, which is obviously a sensible first step. And if you're going to say, Hazel, that's obvious advice, well, actually no, it's not, because most people don't even think about the ending until they get to the ending, and they realise by that point they're not sure how they want it to end, and because of that all the pace is off in the rest of the book, and it can get a bit messy. So it's actually really good to think of your ending when you're at the start. And as you plan out the rest of it, and as you come to write the novel, keep that ending, you know, in the back of your mind, keep thinking about it, and it will help with the pacing of your novel so much. And also, if you plan to take this further, making, you know, a trilogy for example, if you also keep in mind the ending of the second and the third book, that will also help pace all of the books as well. I know that's a bit of a big concept if you're planning on writing something like a series of books, but oh my god, it helps so much. I'm telling you now, it helps. So once you've got that A point, the start point, and the B point and the end point, take the time to really flesh out each section of the story. Just keep going, keep fleshing out, keep bringing and encouraging each part of the story out. I'm not really sure how else to phrase this, because it's a plan, like, it's gonna differ depending on what your kind of story is. Like, if you have your base idea, and if you're not really sure what structure your story should take, have a look at something called the hero's journey. And a lot of films and books will follow the hero's journey, and it's basically the different stages that protagonists will take. It's stuff like a humble beginning. Generally in a hero's journey story, they will start in a very small town and everything's normal, and then there will be a call to action where it can be a literal call or someone will come and get them. So for example, if we use the first Hobbit film, Bilbo is just chilling in the Shire, he's having a great time, he loves his ordinary life. Then all of these dwarves and Gandalf come as this call to action to get him to help them. So if you're struggling with the structure of it, I would take a look at some of the models like that. You don't have to follow it exactly though. You can get rid of some of the steps entirely if you don't want to use it, that's fine. You can mix around the steps and put them in different places, that's also fine. It's kind of like once you know the rules you can break them sort of thing. So if you're struggling with the structure, I would take a look at something like that. But like I said, otherwise, just really take the time to really slowly bring everything out of your plot and just ask yourself, oh, where could this lead? Where could this other thing lead? And if you're not liking where it's going, that's fine, retreat back, but at least you've considered it. And also considering all the possibilities will help you also get rid of plot holes because no one wants plot holes, that's not good. And as you are planning out the story, at the same time as you are doing it, you also want to be planning out the characters and the relationships they have with each other. And by relationships, I don't just mean romantic relationships. Two people being friends is still a relationship. A mother and a daughter is a relationship. A teacher and a student is a relationship. Any kind of interaction with someone, whether they only interact once or they interact through the whole book, is still a relationship of some kind. So also take the time to thoroughly explore your characters, and it really should develop with the plot, because often the plot will influence the characters, and depending what your story is about, you may need a character who's maybe like a specialist in something. For example, in my novel, it's called Nightmare Scenario, there's a link to it down below. It's a young adult science fiction romance novel and it's set in 2047 in London. Now you can imagine in 2047, there's a lot more technology. Everyone has watches surgically attached to them, people own androids to be their housemaids, to be their teachers, to be security guards. There are flying trains, and there's a lot of problems in the book that come up due to technology. So I made my main character be good at electrical engineering because she needed that skill in order to kind of survive in this world I had created. So the plot and the characters, they do kind of need to develop simultaneously, so you can go back and actually like, okay, well, this character wouldn't live somewhere like that, or it doesn't suit them, so can I use that somewhere? Would they realistically do that in the plot or not? So do I need to change the plot for the character, or should I change the character for the plot? You need to do them at the same time as you go along. I've already made a video on how to create a good character and also how to write an effective character. I'll put them down below and I would suggest watching them if you want to know more about character. But just general takeaway points about character, I would say try your best to make them realistic and three-dimensional. Now don't get me wrong, it's good to have, you know, a cool eccentric character in there. I'm not saying you can't have those. And if your book is kind of more on the absurdist side, so like an absurdist book, is something like The Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. Those are kind of absurdist books where everything's a bit weird and no one questions it. That's fine if you're writing a book like that. And there's nothing wrong with having a standalone character who's a bit odd. In my book, all the androids are kind of a bit like that. They're a bit more quirky than the humans are. That's completely fine too. But if you are writing a book that is meant for realism, or you want some realistic characters in there, you just need to ask yourself, and maybe ask a friend or a relative to just have a look at this character and ask them, how realistic do you think they are? It's always good as well to get an outsider's perspective. Maybe you should consider reading out your plan to them to see if they can identify any plot holes as well. And also for each character you need to question what's their goal within the story, what's their ambition, what do they want. So going back to A Series of Unfortunate Events, the three orphans, Violet, Klaus and Sunny, want to find out what happened to their parents, and obviously more goals come up as the story commences because there are 13 books, obviously that's just the way it is, but that's the main overarching goal of the entire series. What happened to our parents? And you also need to ask yourself, what is this character's purpose? As in, what purpose do they serve in the narrative? Are they just a random throwaway character? What can they be used for? Now don't get me wrong, you can have a random throwaway character who just, you know, works in a shop and serves your character coffee once. That's completely fine. But if you are having any bigger rolled character, ask yourself, how many times can you use them? Can you use someone else for this part? Like, why do you have them? So imagine that your cast of characters is an orchestra and you are the conductor, and you've got your list of songs that you're going to play in the set, but you're looking around at all your characters and you're thinking, well, we can actually only use character 52 in one song out of 50, so why are they here? Can I use someone else for that part? And also, again, if you're struggling with characters, you can look at something like the different roles characters have. So you have something like the hero, the antagonist, the love interest, the best friend, the femme fatale, things like that. I will leave links to that down below. But if you want to know more in depth about character, I will leave links below to my 2 character videos. The next is setting, and whilst you may not need to develop this at the same time as doing the plan and the characters, it should definitely be considered as you are planning, because depending on where it is set, that can have a big influence on the story. So for example, my novel is set in London. Now first of all, I don't live in London. I've been plenty of times, but I don't live there. So I did have to do some research if I was going to say, okay, Kai and Gracie, the 2 main characters, are going to go to St Paul's Cathedral, for example. How feasible is that going to be? Like, what time is it open? Is it expensive to get in? Where can they exactly go in the cathedral? Stuff like that. And I have been to St Paul's Cathedral, but it may sometimes require a bit of research. So if you don't have time to do that for your setting, I would pick somewhere you know. However, a bit like the characters and the relationships with each other, your setting, it does kind of need a purpose. Now just a quick note about the purpose I didn't mention before. The purpose of the setting or the purpose of a certain character doesn't need to be obvious straight away. It's okay if the purpose for that setting isn't revealed until later on. That's fine. That's completely fine, don't worry about it. For example, a setting with a really good purpose is the world of Panem in the Hunger Games, and how it's been split into the different districts as well as the capital, and how each district like has a different job to do. So everyone from District 12 are coal miners, and I don't remember which one's the trees one, but you know what I mean. Panem is so specific to the purpose of each district and the bigger purpose they serve to the plot and overthrowing the capital. So by this point you should have a pretty solid plan, and obviously before you start writing it, you want to split it up into chapters, and I think a chapter a day is fairly manageable as long as you don't make them too long. I would say, unless you want something with very short chapters, I would say a minimum chapter length would be about 3,000 words. I think that would be a fair length. But don't make them too long, don't make this too hard on yourself. I do feel like NaNoWriMo is supposed to be a fun thing, and even though I've never done NaNoWriMo before, I do find writing a novel incredibly fun. So just take your time with it and have fun, but when you do get to the writing part, try not to think too much about writing when you're doing it. Just follow your plan and just write, just go for it, just let your brain do it. If you've been writing for long enough and you have enough confidence in your ability, it will come out okay. You don't need to think about it. You can kind of read from amateur writers, and not that's a bad thing. I don't mean amateur in like a condescending way. I mean people who are just starting out, and that's completely fine. Everyone's got to start somewhere. I don't mean it in a condescending way. But you can kind of see they're kind of pressed too close to it, and they're trying to make it sound like writing, and they often use very flowery and like over the top language. And whilst it sounds pretty, it just gets a bit jumbled up and it sounds a bit messy. It's just sometimes better to have confidence in yourself and just write. I'm sure you can do it. I believe in you. You got this. You can write a novel in a month. You can write a novel in half a month. You can do it, okay? But another thing I know people struggle with is the dialogue. So if you're reading back over what you've written that day and you're not sure about the dialogue, go one by one, read out each line of dialogue and just ask yourself, does it sound realistic? Does it sound like something another human being would say? Now, of course, there are exceptions. If maybe someone likes to talk in a certain kind of way, they maybe like to use bigger words in their sentences that people wouldn't naturally use in everyday language. That's fine, that's an exception. That is part of their character and who they are. That's a different story. But just in general, for the normal characters, does the dialogue you are giving them sound realistic? And the easiest way to say yes or no to that is to read it out and see if it does sound realistic. It sounds really obvious, but most people don't do it. So those are my tips for NaNoWriMo. But as always, if you have any questions about writing, I will gladly answer them for you. You can leave them down below or send me a message on Twitter or Instagram and I will get back to you as soon as I can. So if you are participating in NaNoWriMo in 2020 or have come back to this video at another time of the year just because you want to write a novel in whatever month, then I wish you all the best of luck. I'm sure you can do it. Just plan as much as you can, and when you come to writing it, don't think about it, just do it. You've got this, I believe in you. I'll see you all next time. Bye!